Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ozark Mountains in Missouri, USA. Today, we're back on our new old stock, or New-In-Box Amiga 500. Remember in the last episode, after we checked out the power supply and got in the computer, and I got the computer booted up, I wasn't able to get Tetris to play, but I'm 99% sure that was user error, and the large return key here didn't work, but it did on the number pad, so we'll confirm that's a fault. And we'll also pull the floppy drive out and clean it and lube it. I imagine it's still clean, but 30-year-old grease is probably due to be cleaned off of there and replaced. So let's get started with that. Okie doke, our test setup is the same as the last time. We've got the Amiga 500 here, the power supply. We're still using the A520 video adapter, so we're doing color composite. And I've got the Extron, what is that, an IN1502 video scaler is what we're using to go to the monitor, and we're recording that on the PC as well through a USB video capture device. So we'll start the video capturing nothing, or turn on the Amiga. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is go ahead and put the Workbench disk in and let that boot up. I read through this manual last evening. Not all of it, it's quite extensive. It's kind of a reference guide, but it details the differences between Amiga DOS 1.2 and 1.3. The user's manual was written for 1.2, and this is all the differences in 1.3, so it explains why I didn't see a lot of the things on the Workbench that were explained in the manual. I also took a look at the documentation that came with Tetris and figured out what I did wrong. It was supposed to leave the Tetris disk in there when it called for a Workbench. It's got all those files right on the disk, or you can actually just boot from the Tetris disk as well. So. It's not doing anything. Yeah, guess it didn't see that the floppy was installed. Now it's happily chugging along. One other thing I didn't mention about these Extron video scalers is that since they're a commercial unit designed for TV stations and video production places, there's no on-off switch on. It's designed to stay on all the time. So I mounted a small power strip on the back that cuts off power to the video splitter and the monitor and the scaler all at once, because I don't need that running all the time. Looks like my video capture device does not like this. Try it in a different port. There we go. Now it's happy. Okay, so now we're recording, and the first thing I'm going to do is double check that this return key in fact does not work. And I'm sure you guys are saying, oh, there's some built-in utility for that. But I haven't come across what that might be yet. So we'll just open up the shell. And I don't remember any of the commands I read about last evening for the shell, but I should be able to press enter and have it do nothing. Yeah, this one is definitely dead. If you guys know what I should type in here, just shout it out. It'll save me from looking it up. Now, in CLI will actually end the shell too. There we go. That wasn't too hard once you knew what to type in there. Okay, so I'm going to pop out the Workbench and I'm going to install Tetris Guess when I pull that floppy drive out of there, I should look at that switch that senses when the disk is in to make sure that's okay, since it kind of stuck the first time there. Nope, it does not like that. So let's try rebooting from the Tetris disk. I know there's a 3-key combination to reboot. I do not know what it is. Now this is booting directly off the Tetris disk. Well, the drive's still running this time, so maybe we're making some progress. I kind of wonder if there's a... Oh, hey! We have sound too. How's that? Alright. The drive's still chugging away. Oh, awesome. Actually, I was reading about this guy that invented Tetris. He actually lives in the US now, and one of the guys that was the US promoter or licensor of Tetris helped him immigrate and get set up to receive, or help buy the Tetris rights, and finally get some royalties from what he created a long time ago. I thought that was pretty cool. Level 0. Height 0. Start game. Oh, hey, I don't know what any of these buttons do. Okay. Quit Amiga Q. Maybe the other Amiga Q. There we go. Okay, and get dropped back into the CLI. That's kind of weird, but it works. Okay, so Tetris works. You just got to start it up the right way. And our return key doesn't work. And we need to clean up that floppy drive. So let's get busy on that. You've seen me pop the case open before, so I'll do that and get you zoomed in here on the keyboard itself. Okay, we've got the keyboard pulled out, and it's really easy to get the keyboard out of the Amiga 500, I must say. This is a different type of keyboard than what's, say, on the Commodore 64, where it has one of the CIA chips actually scanning the keyboard matrix directly. This has its own microcontroller, which takes care of that, and then it has a serial connection to the motherboard proper. I just noticed that this keyboard frame has a bit of a bend in it right there. So, as I'm sure you are aware, this is a membrane type keyboard. I've got a membrane in here. This is not for an Amiga 500, it's for a Cambridge Z88. Nice fellow in England had these redone. So this is what a membrane looks like. It's similar to this on the Amiga, of course. You just have some conductive tracks on some plastic. There's a couple different layers here, front and back. And then the keycaps press on that plastic. And despite the best efforts of the United States Postal System, they've ripped open about, or at least 50% of this package. Everything still made it here, which is amazing. I'll put the link of where you can buy those Z88 membranes in the description below. So we've got a whole mess of screws here that you need to take loose to get the keyboard frame out. And I've read you can actually leave this circuit board in place. I think probably just these three in this corner needs to come out. This one looks like it just goes into the middle. Here again, we'll keep track of what screws go where. The three I took out from the circuit board are longer, it looks like, than the rest of these screws. Okay, you probably don't want to watch me do this whole thing. So it's a toss-up between taking the time to stop and start the camera, having this for a montage. Okay, I've got the 142,000 screws that were in this thing out. I'm not sure what the best way to do this is, so I'm going to try lifting the metal frame off. Oh. And the membrane is sticking to the circuit board, which is okay. So I think what I'm going to do first is spin this around. This plunger looks... Oh, you know what? I'll get you a close-up on this. There is something oily around here. Remember I said that the return key looked kind of shiny. Get this in the light just right, you can see that. There we go. I think you can just see that, how those right in there that kind of have an oily appearance. Okay, so I think we're going to need to clean this up. That is for sure. We'll set that aside. It fascinates me, these bits they put on the top as a second layer. That return key is going to be right here. Yeah, and I can see some oil spots on the board there. Oh, I thought that maybe that was a nick and a trace, but that is just some schmaltz. Okay, so I think what's actually in order here is just start simple. A rag made out of t-shirt material and some alcohol, and we'll clean everything up really good, and we'll try some aluminum foil across the contacts just to see if that works. We can just try that with the meter, I think. Put some denatured alcohol on a rag here. This is a clean piece. I'm just going to very gently wipe this surface. It's kind of a green color. That's weird. Now I'll go over it with the dry section. I have an idea here. I don't know if the green is coming from the color of the membrane or the color of what's contaminating it, so let's wipe a little of this off. No, whatever that liquid is, it seems to be clear. So I don't think I'll use alcohol on that again. Maybe just some soap this next time to try to get the rest of that stuff off of there. So I'm just cleaning up everywhere there is some oily residue. Now I wonder if there's some sort of grease they put on the bar for that big return key that maybe just liquefied over the years and ran down in there. That is really bizarre. Got my little cup here, a new Q-tip and some alcohol, and I'll just go around and clean each of these key contacts. Then we'll figure out what to do to clean that membrane a little better. I don't think the alcohol is good to use on it though. It's wiping up some of the green coloring, which we don't want to do. So, here we go. And I took a Q-tip in the alcohol and just rubbed it in here where there's just plastic, and it does bring up this green color a little bit. So I'm not going to use the alcohol on this again. I tried a Q-tip with some household cleaner, some Windex multi-surface, thinking it would be milder, and it seems to do fine. So I've got a fresh rag here, and we'll just give this a gentle wipe to try to get the rest of that residue up, and don't worry, the cleaner has a green tint to it. This is not bringing up the green tint from this membrane. Now, I think the tracks on this are okay because that was the only key that was affected. But we should test that before we put it all back together. So I'll get the camera moved kind of back out of the way. And we'll just rig this up to the computer so we can do a quick test. Okay, I have been blathering for like 5 minutes without realizing I hadn't turned the camera on. So let me catch you up to where we're at. I'll put the computer back together with just the keyboard membrane in here, and there's still plastic under the circuit board here, so it's not going to short out. Boot it up into the shell. Used some aluminum foil as a surrogate key. And you can see I can press there and it works fine. So I'll assemble the keyboard and test it that way, and then we'll look at pulling that floppy drive out and giving that a clean and a lubrication. And then I guess we'll be trying to get the RGB output working. Okay, I've got the keyboard put back together, and we'll give that a final test when we're done with the floppy drive here. There's one screw here, and there's 3 screws from the bottom, and it looks like this is easier with the shield off, but I don't want to stress these little tabs if I don't have to, so I'm going to try to sneak this out with the shield still in place. That may be silly, but we'll see. I think maybe I'll leave that front screw in place to kind of hold it in there while I get these bottom screws. Don't know if that's a good idea either, but we'll see. Okay, all 3 of the bottom screws are the same. Take that out of there and try to sneak this guy out. There we go. Okay. It's not the easiest way to do that. It's kind of an interesting arrangement that they've got a couple small Phillips screws here. This is a Panasonic JU-253-033P. I've got these 2 screws out, so I think this cover should pop off of here, something like this. Okay, we'll set that aside. Of course, the head looks perfectly clean. But I'll go ahead and give that a dab, and we'll dab some grease on here after we clean up that worm gear. Get my alcohol over here. I've got a new Q-tip. Carefully reach in here with the Q-tip. Okay, then we can reuse the same Q-tip for cleaning this old grease off here. So I'm just spinning that worm gear shaft, wiping over it with the Q-tip, get that old grease out of there. Stuff gets pretty thick after several decades. For the shaft, just putting a drop of a light duty oil and a Q-tip, and I'll rub it on that shaft. Then that'll get worked into the bushing as it goes back and forth. I'm going to use some white lithium grease, which works great for light duty stuff where there's plastic and metal contact. It won't damage the plastic. You just don't want to use a petroleum-based grease. You could also use a silicone grease. I'll just try to get it worked into the, excuse me, reaching across the shot there. Everything else on this looks good because it is brand new. Get the cover put back on this, get it popped back in, and put the keyboard on. We'll try it all out. There were a few spots on the shield here where it had started to tarnish just a little bit, so put a few drops of WD-40 on rag and just wiped over those. Not enough to leave really a buildup or anything that would drip. Wipe over it, wipe it off with the dry part of the rag, and it'll leave just enough of coating on there to hopefully keep it from corroding much more. This definitely would have been easier when I had the shield off. Well, this is going to be one of those deals where you got to hold your mouth just right. There we go. Okay. So it is possible to get that in and out without taking the shield off, but it's definitely the hardest way to go about trying to do it. So we'll start this screw in there. Okay, got it snug enough. Yeah, supporting it like that, that works out a little better. So pop these 3 screws in. And tighten this guy up. The moment of truth. Got my workbench disk. Got the keyboard back on, floppy drive installed after a quick service on that. And we're recording, so let's go ahead and turn this on. Okay, floppy drive still works. Now that this is booted up, we'll go ahead and open up the text editor so we can check all the keys. I'll open up the workbench. Oh no! Oh, how disappointing is that? It's not working. Sigh. Lots of screws to come back out. We know that contact works on the membrane. And I actually did check that rubber plunger there with the multimeter, and it had conductivity. So maybe I'll try pulling out a pad from another key somewhere and put in there. Okay, here's what I found. I pulled the enter key off. See if we can get a close-up on this. That is where that grease came from. It was actually the grease off of the key itself. This plunger, this one right here, is from the enter key. And I can try that on any of the keypads here, and nothing happens. It is conductive, but it's not as conductive as the others. Whereas I try one, this is off the F10, I believe. You can see that works. So the conductive rubber on this key stem isn't conductive anymore. So I think what I'll do is I'll swap the F10 key stem for the enter, because the enter will be used more. And I have some conductive paint I can put on that one for the F10. And we'll try that out and see how that works. Finally found this keypad repair stuff. Bought this a while ago, haven't used it yet. Just reading the directions. Of course it says to clean the rubber contact and apply a very thin coating of this after mixing it up really well. And after setting overnight, it can be used. So I've gone ahead and I shut off the computer for now, and we'll put some of this stuff on this one contact, and tomorrow we'll pop that back in the F10 position and try the keyboard out. Okay, here's this jar of stuff. It's kind of liquid in the middle and pasty on the outside. The directions say to get it mixed up very, very thoroughly, so I'll spend a few minutes doing that. Okay, well, that's mixed about as much as I can mix it. Put just a little dab on my Q-tip here. It says you want a very thin coat, like the thickness of cellophane tape. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure how you get that thin a coat on here. Okay, well, we've got some across there. And it's across the whole stem. Just let that set up overnight, and we'll see how it works. It has been a little over 24 hours since we applied the magic conductive paint to this key stem. I know you can't really see it. I tried to put a thin coat on like I said, but it's pretty thick stuff, so we'll first try this out just manually, and if that seems to work, we'll go ahead and pop it in the F10 location and put the keyboard back together. Let's do a bit of testing here first. Oh no, I don't think that's going to work. That paint has already separated from the button, or from the rubber part. I bet it'll make contact. Yes. But that's not going to last. I don't know if I can get that on camera for you or not. Well, that's disappointing. Wait 24 hours for nothing. Well, back to the drawing board. I investigated the key stem a little more, and the resistance across the two contact points was about 30K, unless I really dug the probe points further into the rubber, and then it dropped down to about 3K. Since the conductive paint didn't stick, I'm not sure what to do, so I just went ahead and reinstalled it back in the F10 position, put the keyboard back together for now, and hopefully I don't run across too many programs that need F10 in order to operate. The good news is it's still a really nice Amiga 500, and everything else works, so all in all, I'm still really excited. I think we'll bring this video to a close at this point, and I'll go ahead and put this machine back together and start enjoying using it. In the next video, we'll look at manufacturing a 23-pin D-sub connector so we can hook the RGB output of this Amiga 500 to a different model of Extron video scaler, which has RGB input, and see if it'll sync with the 15 kHz carrier frequency of the Amiga. If you're already a subscriber, thanks. I really appreciate it. It helps out a lot. If you're not, what you waiting for? If you look down below, you'll see a rectangular subscribe button. Just click on that guy and you'll be subscribed. And once you do that, you'll notice a bell-shaped icon, and if you click on that, it'll let you know just as soon as I post a new video. That way, you'll be one of the first ones that gets to watch it. Well, until next time, bye.